Welcome to the rollout of the much anticipated Elite POZ Advisor Group. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn more about how membership in this group can positively affect your practice. So let's start off here with the premise. Why create a group for Elite POZ advisors? Let's dig into it. Well, for starters, it doesn't take a lot to become a POZ advisor. You have to be independent. You can't be with a career carrier. Those relationships don't work. You have to have a proven track record of production. You got to be able to verify that. And you got to be willing to participate in our flagship marketing program. Like I said, there's three things that you really need to do to be able to become a POZ advisor. You have to be independent. You have to have a track record of proven production. That's typically 150,000 of verifiable production in the last calendar year. And you got to be willing to participate in our flagship marketing program. And you can do that by making a $5,000 deposit. Second, just because you're a POZ advisor doesn't mean that you are capable of implementing POZ principles. Just because you have a territory, just because you have a proven track record of production doesn't mean that you can necessarily shepherd a prospect through the entire Power of Zero process. Those two things are not synonymous. We don't require that you master those things before you get a territory. So I want to be clear that just because you are in our program doesn't mean that you have mastered the principles that qualify you as someone who can shepherd a prospect through, through the entire Power of Zero planning process. Number three, talked a little bit about that. Number four, for those of you who have read my three principal books, Volatility Shield is part of the library, but the three ones that you really need to be able to master for this particular paradigm are the Power of Zero, Look Before You Lerp, and Tax-Free Income for Life. If you have read those books, then you know that at the end of each book, I ask the reader to ask the advisor who gave them the book if they are a qualified tax-free planning specialist, and that they should be able to ask you as many questions as possible. And if you answer all those questions to their satisfaction, then you can know that that is an advisor that you should be able to sail off into the sunset with. So it's sort of have the prospect sort of test you out. They ask you various questions to see if you're up to snuff. And I've heard all sorts of horror stories about prospects who email me directly and said, hey, such and such an advisor, not necessarily in this group, but such and such an advisor from Timbuktu gave me your book, and I started to ask them questions about provisional income, and they didn't know what provisional income was. So just because you're handing out a book doesn't mean that you are a qualified Power of Zero advisor. And up until now, if we look at number 5 here, we haven't really had a qualification process. We've had Power of Zero advisors, and then we had the rest of the world. And so there hasn't really been any stratification within our Power of Zero program in terms of qualification. There hasn't been a way for you to set yourself apart from the crowd. You've only been able to say, I am in David McKnight's program, but that in and of itself is not a very meaningful thing. After all, we go back to number 1. You only had to do 3 things to pull that off. You had to be independent, you had to have a proven track record, and you had to make a $5,000 territory deposit. Okay. There's a lot of people out there that claim that they are qualified Power of Zero advisors. Your competition, by virtue of the fact that they may have read the Power of Zero book a couple of times, are out there in the marketplace telling their clients and their prospects that they are qualified Power of Zero advisors. when they give the books out, those clients are coming back and saying, are you a tax-free planning specialist? Are you a Power Zero advisor? You know what they're saying? They're saying, yes, we are. So now all of a sudden the lines are blurred between you and the rest of your competition. So I decided a few months ago that I was tired of having this, this confusion as it relates to people that are in my program and people that are good advisors but are out there have not necessarily been vetted or trained or qualified. There needs to be a distinction between the people who are in our program and are trained to implement the process and those who are simply handing out copies of our books. This group that we're going to be talking about today, the Elite Power Zero Advisor Group, the Elite POZ Advisor Group, will become the gold standard in the industry when it comes to training, vetting qualified advisors who have the ability to shepherd people from A to Z throughout the entire process, mitigate tax rate risk, mitigate longevity risk, all within the same financial plan. All right, so we weighed the pros and cons of an Elite Advisor Group versus a POZ certification. Okay, so I'm going to sort of help you understand the process that we went through to determine why we decided upon the Elite POZ Advisor Group versus a POZ certification. We did explore creating a POZ certification. What we found as we researched this is BDs, RIAs, and the SEC don't much like certifications. You might have CFP, CPA, CHFC, and then POZ behind your name. They tend to not like a lot of these designations. So if we created a designation, we didn't feel like it was probably going to make more headaches for you than create benefits for you. So we decided to create an exclusive advisor group with a rigorous qualification process. We're going to talk about what that process involves here in a second, but I already know, because we've done a lot of testing on this, it's not easy. Okay, so if you think this is going to be a cakewalk and boom, all of a sudden you're a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group, it's not going to be that easy. It's not impossible, but it's not going to be that easy. And we believe that this group provides all of the benefits of certification without all of the compliance headaches that you might otherwise experience. And we do believe that this will be the gold standard for tax-free retirement planning in our industry. So someone may claim that they are a tax-free retirement specialist, but have they really embraced the concepts within our 3 flagship books? Power Zero, Look Before You Lerp, and Tax-Free Income for Life are really the standards for this paradigm. They are the textbooks, as it were. They're the canon, if you will, for the Power Zero paradigm. And all of you have to have the ability to master the concepts that are in those books. And if you are able to master the concepts that are in those books, you will set yourself apart from the rest of the competition. There's just no two ways about it. All right, let's talk about the benefits of membership. Why would you want to go through the trouble of qualifying for this group with all of what that entails? And we'll go through what that entails here in a second. First of all, once you're a part of our group, you can put our group logo, and we'll show you what that logo is here in a second. You can put the group logo on your website. That's assuming your compliance department allows you to do such a thing. You can mention that you are a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group to your clients and prospects. I think that goes a long way for somebody who's read my books and have embraced the paradigm to say that you are in league with David McKnight and you are a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group, and there's only so many advisors in the nation that are a member of this elite group. And by the way, that other guy you're talking to, is he a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group? Do you think that he can really implement the principles and the power of zero if he's not a member of that group? There will be a public-facing webpage that touts public-facing webpage touting the group and describing the rigorous qualification process. So there will be something that you can link to on your website that's a public-facing page that shows the public exactly what you had to do to be vetted, trained, qualified to be a member of this elite group. I think this is one of the biggest benefits right here. For those of you who are in the POZ automated prospect journey, I will be referencing your membership when I refer you leads that come in from this program. And we've already had quite a few leads come in, by the way. And I will put a little link on that email when I'm referring you to these prospects that lets them research exactly what it means to be a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group. The whole idea is that your clients and prospects are going to have that extra layer of assurance that you have been vetted, trained, and qualified to implement these principles and to shepherd them through the process. Up until now, we haven't had a way to let the public know that you are an advisor that's mastered these principles. What is another benefit? Through everything that I'm going to put you through to become a member of this group, your knowledge of the POZ paradigm will increase. You will begin to master these principles. And as you master these principles, your income will go up. And you also get to qualify for the free 50% split leads from POZ. You do not get to qualify for these leads if you are not a member of this group. Now, just because you're a member of this group doesn't mean you necessarily qualify for the leads. It's like all squares, all rectangles are squared. No, all squares are rectangles. All rectangles are squares, but not all squares are rectangles. I think that's how it goes. Note the little asterisk down there. To be able to qualify for a 50% lead program, you have to be in the POZ hierarchy. That's a math issue. That's not a whether we like you or not issue, because for those of you for whom we are getting splits on the application, these 50% leads are way, way too expensive for us to generate to be able to only be able to survive on a 50% app split. There has to be some override in there. And for those of you who are on app splits, there's just not enough meat in the pie for us to be able to generate that. So, but the point is, for those of you who are on the POZ hierarchy, if you want access to these leads, you have to be a member of this program. We have to feel like that we can be confident in handing these leads out to you, that you will make a good impression and that you'll have the ability to close the leads, if I can be perfectly blunt. All right, let's talk a little bit about what this public-facing web page is going to show. In other words, when they click on the link that takes them to the public-facing web page, it talks about the Elite POZ Advisor Group. What are they going to see on there? They're going to see that you have passed a rigorous background check. Believe it or not, people are wondering if they're going to be ripped off. They want to know that you have been vetted. They want to know that you've been personally trained by David McKnight. Okay, so that's important. And they want to know that you've completed an exhaustive 10-part training course. I will get into what that entails here in a second. And they want to know that you have passed a comprehensive mandatory final exam. This final exam is not easy, and the reason I can tell you it's not easy is because we've had a number of people attempt to pass it. This is not enough to say, hey, look, 2 years ago I read The Power of Zero, a year later I read Look Before You LERP. I think I've got all the information I need to be able to pass this test. If you do not have a solid working knowledge of each of these 3 books, you are not going to pass the test. And experience shows us that. They are also going to see that advisors are constantly apprised of changes in the retirement landscape that will keep clients' zero tax retirement plan on track. And then there will also be a strong call to action to engage a member of this elite group. In other words, if they are reading an email that I have sent to them saying how great you are and linking to this page, on that page they will go and say, hey, look, if you've been referred to a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group, you are in good hands. These people have been trained, vetted, qualified, and they are prepared to shepherd you through this process. That is the Elite POZ Advisor Group. That's what you get to put on your website. That's the logo. How do you qualify? Well, first of all, you must be enrolled in the Power of Zero program. You have to own a territory. There may be some people on this call that are just in our mentor program. Unfortunately, you won't qualify until you are a member of our Power Zero marketing program, which means you own a territory. You must pass a background check. Here's good news. If you are licensed or appointed with Allianz or just about any other carrier, then you've already passed a background check. They do a very, very thorough background check to make sure you don't have any issues on your record that would not qualify you to represent their company. All right, you must participate in at least 10 POZ weekly webinars, either live or recorded. Many of you on this call have already done that. We know who you are. Many of you have not. And not having participated in those calls, you, I think, are missing out. I want to put you in a position where you are incented to participate in these calls. So 10 of them, that's 30 minutes each. So that's 5 hours of training, essentially. And then you must pass a 60-question final exam based on the Power of Zero, Look Before You LERP, and Tax-Free Income for Life. Once again, if you've read them a couple years ago and you're trying to call up the memory, unless you've got a photographic memory, you're not going to pass the test. There are details, important details, in each of those books that if you are not acquainted with them, you are probably not prepared to shepherd people through the entire process. You need to get 80% to pass. You have a 60-minute time limit. Let's give you one minute per question. And we do not reveal the correct answers at the end. I know a lot of these tests tell you what the correct answers are, and then you simply memorize those correct answers, and then you go back and you take it all over again, and then you get a 98%, right? We're not revealing those questions at the end. We feel like that short circuits the whole process of mastering the principles that are in those 3 books. And then you've got to be able to keep your territory, and you keep your territory by meeting minimum annual production requirements. Obviously, if you aren't able to meet your minimum production requirements and you lose your territory, that means you're no longer in the Elite POZ Advisor Group. So you got to keep up your production. Once you're a member, what happens? Well, you receive the logo that I just showed you. You can use that on your website if you choose. You can also link to the Elite POZ Advisor Group public-facing website. I think you're really going to like that. It's not quite ready yet, but you're going to really like it. Then you can start disclosing to clients and prospects and the leads that we'll be sending you that you are a member of this group and how great that makes you. I will begin referring to you as a member of this elite organization when referring you to leads. I am already referring leads to people that have participated. For those of you who have mailers that are already in home from the POZ automated prospect journey, I am already referring leads to you. And to have the ability to say that you're a member of this Elite POZ Advisor Group and link to that webpage, I think it's going to go a long way towards making people want to do business with you. Remember, just because somebody comes to me and says, Dave, I need some help getting to the 0% tax bracket, that doesn't mean that they automatically will start working with the person that I refer them to. They have to get over their trust issues, right? They have to know that that person is going to treat them well. And I think that being a member of this group is going to go a long way towards helping give them the assurance that they are going to be taken care of. And ultimately, once you're a member, a byproduct of all this is that your production is going to go up. Next step. This is not my favorite picture in the world because I don't want this guy to take another step. Maybe he could turn around and take a step towards us. But what is the next step for you guys? Well, I would read, if you have not yet, or reread The Power of Zero and Look Before You LERP. If you don't own them, you should. You can buy them off of Amazon, or you can download them instantly on Kindle or on Audible. If you have not yet received a PDF of Tax-Free Income for Life, that is heavy on this final exam. There's basically 20 questions that come from each of these books. If you have not yet read Tax-Free Income for Life, I've already sent you the PDF a couple of times. If you don't have it, just send me an email. I'll send it to you again. So you need to read all of these books. And like I said, if it was a year ago or 2 years ago when you read it, you should probably review them. You should probably reread them. Every once in a while, I reread my own books and I'm like, I forgot I wrote that. So if I'm forgetting that I write this stuff, there's a good chance that you forgot I wrote it too. If you haven't already attended 10 POZ weekly webinars, by the way, those happen every Monday morning at 10:30 a.m. And if you are in our program, that means you are getting these links every Monday morning, reminding you to register. If you haven't already attended 10, you can start attending on Monday. By the way, if you want to go onto the POZ portal, we archive all of our past webinars on there, and you can start to watch the webinars. If you don't want to binge POZ webinars, you can actually do that. You can just go onto the portal and start watching them right away. It's not like you got to wait 10 weeks to be able to watch the POZ webinars. You can actually go on the archive, behind the POZ portal. If you don't know how to get onto the portal, talk to your marketer. They will happily walk you through that. And I will email everybody the link to the mandatory final exam following this webinar. So we're going to finish up here, assuming there's not a ton of questions. We're going to finish up here in a little bit. I will immediately email you all the link to take the test for that final exam. And like I said, if you're appointed with Allianz or most of our other major carriers, you've already really passed the background check, so you don't have to worry about that part. All right. I warned you this wouldn't be a terribly long webinar, but I did want to go over the basics, and now we have the chance to answer any of your questions. Is there a membership fee or intro cost? There is no cost for being a member of this group. The only cost, Ryan, is that you have to be willing to put in the time to study those 3 books, to own those books, to be in our webinars. Greg, who is a CFP and one of our marketers, he says, this is not a question, but a comment. He says the test is hard. So there you have it from a CFP who has been helping you with your before and after comparisons for the last, 5 to 6 years. Mike says, sounds good on board. Chris says, how many times can you take the exam? You can take it 5 times. It's not a one-time exam. You can take it up to 5 times. And then let's negotiate, right? If you fail it 5 times, let's have a chat and see where you're going astray. You're not getting sent into purgatory at that point. We just want to know what's going on. Can you give us any samples of questions to get a feel for how difficult? Sure. What is the optimal sweep in an IUL? Is it annual? Is it semi-annual, quarterly, or daily? That's one of those things where you either know it or you don't. And unless you've read Look Before You LERP, you may not know that. Mark asks, is the 10-part training program simply the 10 webinar views? That's exactly right. All I want you to do is watch 10 webinars, 30 minutes each, 5 hours total, all the way through, and that qualifies you for that. Ian said, did you say 150,000 in POZ production? Yeah, that's typically what is required to be able to retain your territory, and it's also typically what's required to get a territory. We have been known to make exceptions, but that's the general rule. Ryan says, does watching the archive webinars count and track towards the 10? They are, absolutely. Do we need to be in the POZ hierarchy for all carriers or only a certain list of carriers? Yeah, the carriers that you're using with POZ business that needs to be in our POZ hierarchy if you want to qualify for the 50% leads. Remember, you don't have to be in the POZ hierarchy to be a member of this program, to be a member of the Elite POZ Advisor Group. Anybody can do that so long as they have a territory and they pass all of the different things that we're asking them to do. But we're saying to get the 50% leads, you have to be in the POZ hierarchy for the companies that you're using for those leads, because they're so expensive to generate those leads that we just can't afford to work on anything less than a full override. Mark says, is a multiple choice? Yes, you get 4 answers to choose from. So no matter what, you're at least going to get 25%. That's just a statistical reality. Ron is asking if there's a deadline. By what date do you want all of us to complete the exam? You know, it's really up to you. It's sort of like you can, it's how soon do you want to experience the benefits of being in this group? If you want to experience it within a week, then you would have to get all this done within a week. But, you know, I don't think you're going to be penalized if you wait, unless you are currently, engaged in our POZ automated prospect journey program, and these leads are coming in, and you won't have the benefit of me explaining in that email, referring you that you are a member of this elite group and linking to that public facing webpage that talks about how great you are and what you had to do to become a member of this group. All right, thank you, Ron. Thank you everybody for being on the webinar today, and we will look forward to having a bunch of you become members of this elite organization, hopefully in the next week or two. So thanks everybody for being on the call, and we'll talk to you soon.